Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and this week's video is about the differences between all these different letters that you see behind people's names. What services or different things that they provide for you in regards to your mental health. So, as you know, I say every video that I'm a licensed professional counselor. So my credential is LPC. I have a master's. That means I have a master's in counseling, and I also have a license with the state of Michigan. If you see anybody typically has an LLPC, that means they're limited license, meaning that they have to go through, they have to do a certain amount of work hours and also supervision under another LPC in order to get fully licensed by the state of Michigan to practice, therapy. Okay, so you provide counseling. There's different areas that they provide counseling, whether it can be in the community, like at a community mental health agency, or in private practice. Is where you would see that mostly. Okay, and so that is in one area of that. There you also see that with social workers. So here in the state of Michigan, and you see it in other places too, but I'll speak here for Michigan because of course that's what I know the most, but it will apply for other states as well, just the letters might be a little different. So there's an LMSW, so that's a licensed social worker in the state of Michigan, and the LL again is a limited license, and if they have a full license, then of course they are able to practice therapy. They're able to give diagnoses, the same for LPCs, very similar, and practice therapy on their own, okay, or in a community mental health setting. LLPCs and LLMSWs, limited license mental health professionals, they can still practice. They can still practice, but they will do it under the supervision of a fully licensed person. And so you will still see them. Some of them are in private practice as well, and in community mental health agencies as well. A fully licensed. The only difference between a limited license and a fully licensed person is just that they have been fully licensed with the state of Michigan. They can practice independently, while the limited license cannot. Okay, and so those are two different. So there are other, of course, credentials. One is a psychiatrist and also a psychologist. Okay, now a psychologist, they can also provide therapy as well, but the area that you see them most, or that you will probably see them most, is in the area of testing. So they do a lot of psychological evaluations to rule out diagnoses, or to give you a prognosis about your mental health and recommendations to do so. Psychologists, we love them, we need them. I recommend my clients to psychologists all the time just to rule out diagnoses. It can be very tricky sometimes depending on the diagnosis, and you want to make sure you're making the diagnosis with data. And that is why we rely on those psychologists to do that. We rely on them to do that and give, again, prognosis and recommendations for treatment on things that they need to work on in therapy, or even if there's medication that could be recommended. Speaking of medication, with medication, there are psychiatrists and even nurse practitioners. So there could be a nurse practitioner that has a credential either under psychiatric medicine, and they are being supervised under a psychiatrist, and they can prescribe medication, or a psychiatrist can prescribe medication. Both of those disciplines are going through the medical track of learning, and so they don't typically, I will say this because I don't want you jumping on me, they don't typically have training to do therapy. They don't have the therapeutic training. So sometimes, unfortunately, People have the expectation of a psychiatrist to have the skills of a therapist and be like warm and fuzzy, but sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes you run into that. But most of the times you will find it as being very similar as a doctor's office. A psychiatrist will answer a number of questions. They'll ask you a number of questions, and they will do an evaluation to give you a diagnosis. And the same with a nurse practitioner who's working under a psychiatrist will do the same, and then they will prescribe a medication. So they don't have typically. There are some who do have both, that they have gone to school and done both. They've gotten the therapeutic training and they've gotten the ability to prescribe medication. But that is a rarity. Majority of the time, psychiatrists, they have the medical knowledge to diagnose and know what medications work for what, and if there are certain health or physical health conditions that might interfere with the medication that they might be prescribing you. That makes sense. Okay. So that is kind of the quick end of the alphabet soup that is the mental health field. So I hope that provides you some clarity and to know what you're looking for. The last one, how could I forget? The last one are LMFTs. I know, licensed marriage and family therapist. Okay, and they have the same LMFT, and they have specific training and learning for working with families and couples. So if you are looking for that, then they are your people. They are your people. Not to say that LPCs don't work with families, because I definitely do, and so do LMSWs, and LL, limited licensed social workers and professional counselors, or even psychologists who are practicing, do work with families and couples. However, LMFTs have in their curriculum that they went through school, specific curriculum about marriage and couples, and so that's a different track. So those are the different types of the different types of therapists or counselors that you will see when looking and searching for a therapist. How do you know what works best for you? As always, know that you of course, you want to rely on that consultation to catch a feel for what they know and what trainings that they have, if they have any specific trainings in the area of what you're going and getting and needing support with, because that's very, very important. You want to know that when making that decision for that, because there are therapists who, like I said, who are maybe master's level social workers or professional counselors who have done extensive training in marriage and couples as well, and so they do also have knowledge and have done work and have knowledge on working with families and couples. And there are those who don't and will prefer to work with individuals. For me, I do a lot of work with young adults and teenagers, and so I do have a lot of family experience and training in doing family therapy, and so that's a nuance in itself. But so that is, no, I'm not an LMFT, but I do have the experience and training and working with families. So it gives you just kind of hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask below. I will, in the descriptions, have all the letters in the alphabet soup down below in the description so that you can have clarity on which is which. And I'm sorry for all the people who aren't Michiganders, but the letters are pretty simple or complementary to other states. Other states do have different letters because there's licensing in different letters. Just as we have learned with telehealth, because there are people who maybe want to have a therapist that works in another state than we do, and we've learned, if you maybe you want to work with a therapist who works or lives in another state, than you do, and they have to be licensed in the same state that they're practicing in and seeing you, and where you're present, okay, in order to see you for telehealth. So that is each license is different through their state. So the more you know. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask below. I'll have the different letters and the credentialings and what they mean. And of course, feel free to like this video, share this video with those who, may be looking for a therapist and have questions. And of course, subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.